Late night session, doll. Bad idea, if you ask me. Well, who's paying? Those boys from across the pond, but you're in no condition to be running around Los Angeles in the middle of the night. Mary stretched and rubbed her swollen belly. Those boys are kind of a big deal. Sweetheart, you're the only big deal I'm worried about right now. You and that baby need to rest. Mary smiled at her husband. The baby's always resting. I need to sing. Curtis could have argued, but he knew his wife. Mary needed to sing just like he needed to play. Jack Nietzsche knew it too. There's a car waiting out front, Curtis. It's just a few lines. She'll be back home in no time. Mary put on her slippers and trundled her very pregnant self into the waiting sedan. She arrived at the studio a half hour later, still in her pajamas and curlers. The boys greeted her. Thanks for coming down on such short notice, said one. Jack says you've got the goods. Mary's smile lit up the darkened studio. Jack says you boys have written a gospel song. That's fabulous. My dad is a pastor, you know, and I've been singing in church choirs my whole life. The boys glanced at each other, and Mary detected a look of concern. Well, said the taller one, this is not exactly a church song, but it's got a few lines that we think you could really bring to life. Well, that's just fine, Mary said. Whatever you boys need. Mary felt a kick in her belly. We do need to get a move on, though. It's already past my bedtime, and as you can see, I'm sleeping for two these days. Mary took her position behind a microphone, smiling brightly at everyone around her. There was a chart on the music stand under the mic. Mary picked it up. The boys were correct. This was definitely not a gospel song. The arrangement was dark and moody, and the words were hard to understand. They were easy enough to read, however, and as she read along, the smile on Mary's face began to falter. And when they finally got to her part, her smile vanished entirely. Excuse me, but is this a mistake? Are these the right words? One of the boys glanced down at the lyrics in Mary's outstretched hand and nodded. Those are the words, Mary, but we don't want you to sing them. We want you to mash them. We want you to crush them. We want you to blow the doors off. Can you do that? Mary looked again at the words on the page. No, her father would not approve. Curtis would not approve. And the baby kicking in her belly seemed to disapprove already. But Mary was a pro. And truth be told, she enjoyed the way people reacted when she pulled out all the stops, especially in church, where she stunned the congregation week after week with soaring a cappella rendition of Amazing Grace, Abide With Me, the old rugged cross. And so Mary welcomed the challenge and gave the boys exactly what they asked for. She didn't just sing those words. She mashed them. She crushed them. She belted them out with more gut-wrenching intensity than anyone in that studio could have ever expected. In other words, she blew the doors off with a performance that many believe to be the single greatest background vocal of all time. And when she finished, the boys were positively gobsmacked. Unfortunately, it would be years before Mary could listen to that recording, much less enjoy it. Because later that same night, just a few hours after she cemented her place in music history, Mary lost her baby. Maybe it was the late hour, or maybe it was the strain she put on her body, or maybe it was the darkness of the lyrics, or maybe it was just bad luck. Whatever the cause, Mary entered the darkest period of her life shortly after belting out the line that made her famous in a signature song that would ultimately define one of the greatest bands of all time. You've heard it on the radio, and you've probably heard it in movies like Casino, Goodfellas, and The Departed. But you probably haven't heard what the boys from across the pond heard in 1969. Moments after they asked a 20-year-old gospel singer with curlers in her hair and Jesus in her heart to blow the doors off. Something to think about the next time you find yourself singing along with the Rolling Stones as Gimme Shelter plays for the millionth time and the incomparable Mary Clayton wails away in the background. Just a shot away. Anyway, that's the way I heard it.
Where do you want to start with this? Organic mountains of evil, a power that is able to make a way out of no way and transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows.
You want me to top that? All right, I'll say this. When you came to me initially and said, I want to turn these stories into little TV plays, I said, that's not going to work. You're going to wreck it. You're going to spoil the ending. I don't think it's going to work. You went off and did it anyway. When I said to you, since you did that, I think we ought to sit down somewhere, and I think we ought to talk about the story behind the story. You said, no, I don't really think that that's necessary. I think the stories stand on their own. And besides, these stories don't really lend themselves to the kinds of conversations that a TN audience, for instance, might enjoy. And I said, I beg to differ. Well, after 5 seasons of this, I would say that maybe if we can make Gimme Shelter a hardcore rock and roll protest song, relevant to the same people who put their hope and their trust in the promises of testaments old and new, then I'd say maybe we were both right and wrong.